Folks, since the war with Iran has begun, there has been one man who's getting a whole lot of attention for his breakdowns, and that's this fella. Predictive History, aka Professor Jang. Here he is.
As well.
With his whiteboard, all right, and he has basically been given predictive history on global affairs. He seems to think he knows exactly what's going to happen with Iran, and ironically, right before the US presidential election, he actually made 3 predictions, 2 of which have come true, but unfortunately, he is now also predicting some very, very unfortunate and tragic outcomes for this war with Iran, and if he's right, America is in for a very disappointing defeat. Okay, so let's refresh ourselves on how on point Professor Jiang has been with his predictions and the unfortunate predictions that he is making that America will actually be losing the war in Iran.
So in this class, this semester, I'm making 3 big predictions, right? First is that Trump will win in November. Second is that the United States will go to war against Iran. And the third big prediction is that the United States will lose this war, which will forever change the global order. These
Yikes.
past, so last class, we looked at one reason why the United States would invade Iran, which is the Israel lobby. And in today's class, we'll look at another.
This video was May the 10th, 2024, by the way.
Another reason, which is the defense of empire. America is an empire, and it must defend its imperial status. So let's examine what an empire means for America.
So he's talking about America being an empire, okay, the empire status, how America will fall off. And I've got a bunch of other links here that are basically going to dig into some of his other predictions and basically his reasoning as to why America is going to lose the war in Iran and that, you know, the global order will never be the same again. It's very unfortunate. I'm sad to see it, but he's been on point with his other predictions. So this is a little bit concerning. Once the war started, he predicted that water desalinization plants would be directly targeted. The Middle East naturally basically not having enough water. It's a bunch of deserts, and these desalination plants, my bad, are basically going to be targeted in the war, and there's going to be a drought. People are going to die of thirst in this war.
You made 3 big predictions. 1, that Trump would win. 2, that he would start a war with Iran. And 3, that the U.S. would lose that war. Quite a stunning prediction. You know, do you stand by it?
The reality is that right now, it's a war of attrition between the United States and Iran. And the Iranians have been preparing 20 years for this conflict. And now they have a pretty good strategy of how to weaken and ultimately destroy the American empire. So what the Iranians are doing is they're waging war against the entire global economy. And so they are striking the GCC countries. They're going after the critical energy infrastructure. They blocked off the Strait of Hormuz. And eventually, they will go after the water desalination plants, which is the lifeblood of these nations because they don't have fresh water supply. The Iranians are actually threatening the very existence of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. And why this is important is that the Gulf states are really the linchpin of the American economy. So what they do is they sell petrodollars and then they recycle the petrodollars back into the American economy through the investments in the stock market. And right now, we know that the entire American economy is propped up by AI investments in data centers. And a lot of that comes from the Gulf states. So if the Gulf states are no longer able to sell oil and they're no longer able to finance AI, this AI bubble in the United States, then this AI bubble will burst, and with it will burst as well as the entire American economy, which is.
So what he's saying is the Middle Easterners, they got all this oil, they sell the oil for dollars, they then got a bunch of dollars that they don't know what to do with, and they put those dollars back into the US stock market. They buy Nvidia, they buy Amazon, they contribute money that these companies use to set up data centers to run all these big AI projects we've been hearing about. And they're saying that if the Middle East want to, if they're short cash, if they can't sell their oil, they'll pull all their money out of the stock market and there'll be a massive stock crisis. The companies won't get the investment they need. Amazon won't be able to keep building their data centers. OpenAI won't be able to keep spewing nonsense to you on their app, and the whole house of cards will completely fall down. Now, this is very scary, and he's making very good points. Now, when he mentioned the water desalination plants that would actually be attacked, this exact scenario played out soon after he made this prediction.
Tom, you want to talk about what happened with Bahrain with that water desalination camp that they had? Yes, Bahrain says Iran had a desalination plant stoking fear of attacks on civilian sites. Tom, why is this so important?
Well, desalination is how they take the Gulf water.
What's going on with this?
Convert that to fresh water. It takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of system. General Electric is usually the one that builds these around the world. And when you have money pumping out of the ground, you have all the energy you need to run this. But this is how, when anybody looks at the pictures, wow, Dubai, look how lush, look how beautiful, look how this. They built golf course over there, LIV Golf. They got all these championships, and look at how lush it is and everything. Where'd that come from? It came from the Gulf, because they would desalination, and now they don't need to find deep water wells. They have deep water wells, but this is where they get their water so that they have a lush, civilization and a tremendous opportunity to grow and expand for their people.
So they're sucking the salt out the water. They're having these beautiful vistas in their countries, but it is all built on a house of cards. Now, here are some other predictions from Professor Jiang from 6 months ago, and you can make your own mind up about this.
These are my 5 predictions for the world for the next 5, 10, 20 years. The first thing that's going to happen in the Western world is decline of democracy and freedom. Second thing is economic collapse. As people have less and less right to speak up, they feel less invested in the system, they're less willing to work. Therefore, you have economic collapse. People don't believe in the system anymore. Okay? The system is in crisis. This will lead to immigration. The government is like, you know what, if the people don't want to work, screw them, let's bring in immigrants. But the people are not going to sit back and take it, right? This leads to civil war. And the government is like, you know what, if we continue to let them fight, eventually they're going to come after us. So what we'll do is send them off to like these stupid, pointless wars overseas. So now you have stupid wars, stupid foreign wars.
Stupid foreign wars, decline in democracy. It is absolutely disastrous. He would also suggest that the Iranian leader may well have actually died on purpose, intentionally sacrificing his life to energize his people
think of the
in a holy
death
war.
of Khamenei as a sacrifice, a self-sacrifice in order to motivate the Iranians in this war, okay? The Ayatollah, he's 86 years old, and he chose to die. He could have gone to Moscow, but instead he chose to stay in Tehran and die for his people. But not only that, but he died along many of his relatives. He died along with his daughter, his son-in-law, his grandchildren. Also, there's been reporting that he had prostate cancer. Okay, so he was going to die fairly soon as well. So what you need to understand first about the war is that even though the Americans and the Israelis claim great success in decapitating the leadership of the Iranians, from the Iranian perspective, this is a martyrdom. In the Shia faith, the core value, the force that binds everyone together and gives them purpose and meaning in life, that galvanizes them into action, is the idea of martyrdom, which forces jihad. You sacrifice yourself for your religion, sacrifice yourself for the common good.
So they're saying Khomeini sacrificed himself for the common good, and it might not have been that much of a sacrifice, because ever since 2014 there were rumors that the Ayatollah had been battling prostate cancer anyway. He'd had serious surgery, and he might have been checking out anyway.
Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has successfully undergone prostate surgery, according to official media. The 75-year-old was visited at a government hospital in Tehran by President Rouhani. Khamenei said beforehand that there was no need to worry, but that didn't mean he didn't need people's prayers. Doctors say the surgery was routine. This operation normally needs about 5 days of rest after it's done for all patients. He would probably need to rest for the same amount of time. After he's discharged, like everyone else, he'll need to reduce the intensity of his work. Khamenei has been Iran's supreme leader for 25 years. He's repeatedly denounced the West, but has supported talks between Iran and the 6 world powers over the country's disputed nuclear program.
So he might have been about to check out anyway, okay? But there you go. Trump decided, why not make him a giant martyr so that other people might sacrifice themselves to try and fight his ongoing jihad? That's not a great move, to be honest with you. It wasn't very well thought out. But during a recent appearance on Breaking Points, Professor Jiang would also explain in more detail why he believes the US wouldn't be able to win this war.
You made 3 big predictions. 1, that Trump would win. 2, that he would start a war with Iran.
Threatening the very existence of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. And why this is important is that
we already heard some of this. It was the last part that I want to play you.
Then this AI bubble will burst, and with it will burst as well the entire American economy, which is really a financial Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, sir, an Amazon data center was literally hit in the UAE. Now, we also wanted to talk to you about munition. The United States is racing to accomplish Iran mission before munitions run out.
The United States military is not designed to fight a 21st century war. Remember, the military-industrial complex came to being after World War II, and it was designed to fight the Cold War. And the Cold War was really about muscle flexing, who was to first get the person on the moon. And so the entire American military strategy revolves around very sophisticated technology that costs a lot of money to build. And that's what the American air defense system is. And that's why we're seeing this asymmetry in this war, where you have these $1 million missiles trying to take out these $50,000 drones. And it's not sustainable in the long term. And so what we're seeing is really the puncturing of the aura of invincibility that sustained American hegemony for the past 20 years.
Yikes. It's really scary, okay? And it's definitely making sense why America might not be able to win this war. It is very unfortunate. They're saying munitions weren't stockpiled enough. They weren't built up enough for a long-running 21st century war with drone strikes. They're saying the drones cost 20 grand and they cost $4 million of the American side to actually take down these drones. That's really not sustainable. And they're basically going to drain the finances of America to the floor if they keep down this path. Now, interestingly enough, okay, a very relaxed senior official recently from the Iranian government would explain that Iran will not be backing down and they will be willing to take this the distance to try and drain America's.
Is your side seeking, or will you seek, a ceasefire with the United States at this point in time, and with Israel?
I don't see any room for diplomacy anymore, because Donald Trump has been deceiving others and not keeping with his promises.
How does all of this end then? If you say right now there's no room for negotiation, President Trump says he wants complete surrender, what does that lead to?
There's no room unless the economic pressure would be built up to the extent that other countries would intervene to guarantee this termination of aggression of Americans and Israelis against Iran.
Iran has a new supreme leader. What does that mean for your military effort and the confrontation with the United States and Israel?
That means the system is quite functioning.
The United States says it's drastically degraded the Iranian military, the capabilities as far as missiles is concerned, drones is concerned. How much longer can you do this?
That is one of the false narratives that the United States government is producing. Iranian military is quite strong, as you see, because they have the motivation, they have the arms that they need, which are produced in Iran.
So your side is ready for a long war if the United States and Israel choose that. Do you consider this an existential threat to the Islamic Republic?
It is an existential threat to the Islamic Republic, and therefore we have to stay with full might, as we are doing now.
Finally, what is your message to President Trump as we sit here, as the war is going on?
What is important for us is the end of this game, and we are ready to continue that game.
And you mean how this war will end?
Yeah, the end of the game would be the time that Americans and Israelis would come to this understanding that this strategy is not working, and they have to stop their aggressions.
So he is very calm and collected, all right? Maybe he's a little bit shell-shocked from all the rocket attacks, but he's very calmly saying that there won't be any surrender. They want to go to the distance. They want to take America all the way to the grisly conclusion. Now, some reports are actually coming out to suggest that officials in Israel and the US are now having second thoughts about this whole disastrous attack.
All right, let's move on to Israel.
Yeah, so we've got, sort of a parallel story here going on from the Israelis, where we just talked about how some of Trump's aides are leaking to the press, like, oh, we're trying to figure out how to get out of this thing. Well, the Israelis are apparently leaking to David Ignatius, who's known to be very, tied in with the deep state over at the Washington Post, that they are also concerned. So this is worth taking note of with interest. Put this up on the screen. So the headline is, Israeli officials are growing concerned. A bombing campaign nearing its military goals in Iran leaves the hardest questions unanswered. A few senior officials in Israel are starting to voice concern about the escalating open-ended attack on Iran and suggesting possible exit ramps that might halt the war before it further damages the region and the global economy. Talk of an endgame is early, and a decision about whether to stop the attacks rests largely with President Donald Trump. That's not what he said, by the way, in any case, who continues to seek all-out victory. But in a telephone conversation Sunday, a senior Israeli official familiar with the planning and strategy for the Iran war discussed alternatives to Trump's call for unconditional surrender. The official requested anonymity. So that is kind of the line coming out from these Israeli officials is, look, our bases are taking, direct hits. We're going to talk later about the radars that have been damaged. Our Gulf allies are really unhappy in a variety of ways. We'll talk about that as well. But the Israelis are taking active fire in their country. And we really don't have a clear view of just how much damage has been done. But they have to be.
So look, Israel, they are getting absolutely hammered, okay? It is a disaster. It is unfortunate, and I really hope that America doesn't go the same way. It is definitely a very difficult situation. They don't really have an off-ramp. They don't really have a plan to get out of this situation. And I'm really concerned that this is just going to spiral out of control. I'm going to put this cat on the ground. It is very scary. Okay, Professor Jang is predicting that the US will be losing this war. He has been very correct in his previous predictions, which only makes the whole thing even more chilling and fear-inducing, if I'm completely honest with you guys. So I'll keep you guys updated if anything else happens, but for now, it is looking a little bit scary. It's looking like America might not be in the best position in this war, and yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm a little bit scared, all right? Let me know what you thought of that video. I've got 3 more videos coming for you today. We're doing an absolute marathon of content, okay? I hope you're locked in. I hope you got nothing going on your schedule so that you can sit back, relax, and enjoy all of the nonsense that I'm spouting on my channels, okay? Because that's just what I do. This is what I do. This is what I put here to do, to talk about what's going on and keep you guys informed of the things that I'm interested in, okay? So I've got some interesting videos coming for you guys for the rest of the day. Stay tuned. I'm excited to show you the next video. And for now, I'm out of here, gang. Peace.